Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, why did JD Martinez sign with the Dodgers? Look at center field and what Chris Taylor did this offseason, and what are the Dodgers going to do leadership wise now that Justin Turner's gone? That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers and subscribe, and you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. I'm usually here with co-host Jeff Snider, but Jeff held it down, so I'm holding it down today. And we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time covering the Dodgers, currently cover the Dodgers, been all over Dodger Stadium in pretty much every seat you could imagine. And we're here to bring the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning for about 30 minutes. And that's what we're here to do today. Talk about the Dodgers. No real news in Dodger land, but there is a couple things that stem from FanFest and stem from last night. Last night, Mookie had his first charity event in Los Angeles for his 50-50 Foundation, Mookie Betts and Friends Bowling Tournament. It was at LA Live in downtown LA at Lucky Strike. It was a cool event. There wasn't as many teammates as normal, but Lucky Strike's a little bit of a smaller venue. So, yeah, not entirely sure why. JD Martinez was there. Miguel Vargas was there. Mookie obviously was there. James Loney was there. And then a couple others, Trevor Reza was there and some other people throughout the night. So it was a fun night, fun event. And, Mookie loves bowling. Mookie puts it down bowling, and it was fun to watch. But one thing that happened because JD Martinez was there was people got to talk to him for the first time, and he talked about why he signed with the Dodgers and just kind of what his mindset is now. So I'll run through some quotes that he had. He says, "Quote: I'm in a part of my career where I just want to win." And then he went on to add, I didn't want to be on a team that was going to be rebuilding. I didn't want to be on a team that was trying to see where it was going, that didn't know where we were going to be. I wanted to be on a team that is going to be in the running, that is going to be right there come October. That was my main thing. That was literally my main focus. As JD Martinez did take a deal probably below his market. Scout Boris claimed that it was 6 to 7 million undervalue for him. So, yeah, JD obviously is here to win. His relationship with Mookie Betts did help, and with Rob Van Scoyoc, Dodgers hitting coach, he said that about Mookie, or Mookie said about him, we're genuine friends. It's way deeper than baseball, and that they were definitely. JD said that Betts and Van Scoyoc were definitely recruiting and reaching out to Martinez to come join the Dodgers. At the end of the day, JD said, this is where I wanted to be. I'm getting to the back end of my career, and I know this is really good chance to try to win another World Series. He went on to add, when I went to talk to Andrew on the phone, Andrew being Andrew Friedman, I said, I'm doing this because I believe in you guys, and I believe in the team you put on the field every year. This is something that you don't see as often in baseball, mainly because baseball is a little bit more hit or miss in terms, like, you can't just join a team when you're older and say, oh, I'm trying to win. Obviously, you're trying to find a team that gives you a better chance to win. But at least, in basketball that you see this a lot where guys take veteran minimums or take the minimum to go play on these teams with 2 or 3 superstars in order to try to get those championships that they didn't get. And it's a little bit different in basketball because most of the time those teams do end up winning, or obviously the Nets. We just saw them get broken up and they didn't do it. And we've seen other teams recently not do it. But you have a better chance in basketball than you do in baseball to try to championship hunt. Even in football a little bit, for some of these guys, they can wait till 2-3 games in mid-season, something like that, to find a team, hop on, and try to get out on. I mean, and Ndamukong Suh's on the Eagles, and he didn't start playing until halfway through the season. But in baseball, it doesn't happen as much. But JD, I mean, he knew what he wanted. He wanted to be on a team that has a chance, and that's basically what he said. A team that knows what they want. The Dodgers know they want to win a World Series. Did the Red Sox? Yeah, they probably know they want to win a World Series, but they're not necessarily making the moves to doing so. They did make a lot of different smaller moves this offseason, but they didn't make any bigger moves, and they weren't necessarily a good team last year. So it was a little bit different on their end. And, there's not a lot of teams. There's a little bit more than normal, but there's not a lot of teams that you can say, like, oh, yeah, they're definitely trying to win a World Series. The National League has a lot of them with 3 in the NL East and then 2 in the NL West. And then really only 1 in the Central. And even then, the Cardinals didn't do too much. They're kind of banking on their guys to play well and just get into it. That division's one of the weaker divisions right now. American League, kind of similar. You don't have too many teams. You have almost all the NL East teams, depending how you feel about the Red Sox, that are at least trying to win. And then you have the Central. You have the Twins. They're trying to win. I don't think they can. The Guardians are young, but not necessarily guaranteed they're going to replicate that success they had last year. The Astros are definitely trying to win, but even then, it's hard to be as good as the Astros have been for as long as they've been, similar to the Dodgers. But all in all, JD Martinez signed with the Dodgers. He's here. The Dodgers, it's, they've lost in the postseason way more often than they've won a World Series. But it's something that the Dodgers could maybe benefit from here in the next few years, where if it is successful, like let's say the Dodgers win the World Series this year, then next year is there another veteran that would take a undervalue deal in order to join the Dodgers to give themselves a better chance? It's possible. Like I said, it's not as easy in baseball because one player can only make so much of a difference. But if you do, get a veteran pitcher that says, you know what, I'll take a little bit of a pay cut to play with the Dodgers because I know that's where I want to win. Although you're not necessarily going to get a very good veteran pitcher because those guys are still getting big money. We saw Max Scherzer get big money last offseason. We saw Justin Verlander get big money this offseason. DeGrom's not as old, but he's getting up there. He got big money. Now, those guys are still, in their dominant. They're not in their prime, but they're still dominant to a certain extent. Whereas, some of these other veterans that would be thinking about that may not be in that dominant phase, but they're still in their pretty good phase. I mean, I guess you could look at Clayton Kershaw as one of those guys. He definitely probably could have got more guaranteed money on the open market, but he's comfortable with the Dodgers. He knows the Dodgers are trying to win the World Series every year, and that's what he's focused on. And, the Rangers, it's basically going to come down to Rangers and Dodgers for the rest of the way for Kershaw and his career, and depending how long it goes. The Rangers are trying. They have cobbled together a pretty solid rotation. If their offense can step up a little bit from what it was last year, then they might be able to compete. But even then, they're competing for a playoff spot, not necessarily a World Series. Whereas the Dodgers are competing for a World Series every year, playoff spot, not guaranteed, but as close to assured as possible. Maybe this year might be an exception to where it's not guaranteed, only because the Dodgers do have a little bit more competition from the Padres if their guys stay healthy and their lineup holds up. But also with the wild card spots, there's going to be 3 teams from the NL East likely like it was last year. So, there's other teams that are competing for playoff spots, not necessarily in your division. That's why you still want to win the division. You still want to be the best team in the National League just to not have to worry about any of that stuff. But, hey, that's the reality of the situation, and that's how it goes. So, but yeah, shout out to JD Martinez. I got to ask him a question. I posted on my Twitter. Other people around me that were asking him questions. He seemed to be a pretty genuine, fun guy, and I feel like we're gonna have a good time with JD Martinez this year, and even better if he can hit, put up 35, 40 doubles, 20, 25 home runs. I think he'll fit in pretty well with the Dodgers. So next, we're going to get into Dodgers and leadership and how that's going to be now that Justin Turner's gone. A lot of guys had comments about that. Kind of different from what I showed on Monday of guys having comments on that kind of stuff. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, even better because they have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to who's going to score touchdowns. You got same game parlays. You got a lot of different things on FanDuel that you can bet on. And why not bet on those things? You can bet on, simple. You can bet on the winner. You can bet on game specials. Who's going to get however many yards in a half in the game? You can guess on correct score. You can guess on the exact score. You can bet on how many rushing yards Jerick McKinnon's going to have. That's a random name. You can bet on a bunch of different things. You can bet on different props and scoring. You can bet on who's going to score what. You can bet parlays, like I mentioned. You can bet on a lot of different things. So go to FanDuel Sportsbook, check it out, download the app, and it's safe, easy, super easy to use, secure, and you get all your winnings paid out instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get back into it. And a lot of the questions the Dodgers got at FanFest were about the offseason, which is kind of what we showed on Monday of, how these guys believe in their team and how they still think they're good. And yeah, obviously we still think that as well. But the other question is of a matter of leadership. And, leadership is subjective. Leadership is, how much do grown men really need leadership in the sense of like somebody on their team. Now we've seen leadership in terms of like how a manager, how people, we saw the Padres fall apart and then they went and got who they thought was a better manager of men, of people, and it served them well, at least to the very extent of purely results based. They got farther than they did last year. They didn't collapse and not make the playoffs. The Dodgers have had Dave Roberts for a while, and while everybody has different opinions on Dave Roberts, he is a good manager of men. He is a good manager of egos. He is a solid baseball manager in terms of managing the people. Now, if you disagree with some of the decisions he has on the field, that's a little bit different, but at the very least, he knows how to drive the ship, right the ship, whatever it is, he knows how to do it. Um, but yeah, one of the guys that the Dodgers lost this offseason was Justin Turner, who was one of the Dodgers leaders in the clubhouse. If anything, he was one of the longest tenure Dodgers. And he did kind of take that leadership role. And he did, Clayton Kershaw has been on the team longer. Clayton Kershaw is a little bit different type of leader. We have seen Kershaw, lighten up a little bit in the last few years, but he's not necessarily a leader by he's more a leader by example, and he'll help guys out if they ask for it, which is not necessarily leadership, but he's not necessarily a rah leadership type guy. And even so, starting pitchers a little bit different than position players, just because position players, I feel like it's a little bit separated in that sense. Kenley Jansen kind of used to be the leader of the relievers. You would call Clayton Kershaw leader of the starters or the pitchers. And then Justin Turner was always kind of looked at that guy of the leader of like position players. Now, the Dodgers have had other guys come through the years, David Freese, Chase Utley, Hanser Alberto to a certain extent, where those guys can be leaders and can bring leadership, but it's more from a veteran perspective of, okay, I've been here a while. I can show you guys the ropes and I can kind of, show you some tricks and things along the way. Whereas Justin Turner was more of that, hey guys, let's, get together. You saw the Dodgers and their wives always hanging out, going out, that kind of stuff. There was always a group chat running. If you remember before the 2020, before game 4 of that series, or before game 5 when the Dodgers were down 3-1 to the Braves, apparently the group chat was getting everybody hyped and getting going. And then, they ended up going back to win and doing that. But all that being said, what does this leadership look like for the Dodgers this year? And I'll go through some quotes and give some thoughts here. Andrew Friedman spoke about it, and he said, quote, "I think we have a really strong group. I think that's because of the Mookie and because of Mookie and Freddie dynamic from last year and them stepping forward, I think JD will take on a lot of that. Chris Taylor, I think Will Smith's coming into his own. We have a lot of guys that have been around and been a part of a lot of winning baseball, and not only have a good feel for our culture and the things that have helped make us successful, but have ideas and how to enhance it. Freddie Freeman went on to say, this is Freeman, not Friedman. He says you about Justin Turner's departure, you can't replace it. You can hopefully as a group pick up the void. There's gonna be a hole. Justin Turner, he's been here for 9 years, clutch hit after clutch hit after clutch hit. He was in the community seemingly every day, what he means to the community, and he performs. That's hard to do. We're going to miss him. I can't tell you what we're going to do to fill it. It's just naturally those things happen. We've got a first ballot Hall of Famer in Kershaw in our clubhouse too. As an older guy, you just try to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable. Max Muncy went on to say, Turner was such a leader with everything that he did, and he did so many things behind the scenes that no one knows about. One of the things we've always been complimented on is the clubhouse we've had. We always welcome guys in. Guys feel right at home. He was probably one of the biggest reasons for that. And then Dave Roberts went on to say, if you look around the clubhouse, there's a lot of guys that have been around. I don't see how the culture with a couple guys departing should be affected, but I do think that it's an opportunity. It's going to happen organically. And yeah, there's, like I said, a lot of things said there. And at the end of the day, the Dodgers do have the guys that will be able to replace, quote unquote, replace Justin Turner. Freddie Freeman, it took a while for him to get his bearings as a Dodger, but once he did, he's another guy that has been a leader and has shown been able to do that. Mookie Betts has kind of grown into himself as a man, as a leader, as a Dodger these last few years. He'll be one of those guys. And it will be interesting to see how, if they change anything dynamically in terms of, getting amped up or, we remember Dave Roberts' comments and about the loss to the Padres and how their their clubhouse just looked a little different. The Dodgers clubhouse, or the energy, the intensity, whatever the exact wording he used. And I'm not necessarily saying the Dodgers need to be like that, but I am interested to see if that is an approach that they do of, being a little bit different. Now, last year they had the different celebrations, and the dugout does get hype when good things happen. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if any of that changes. It was interesting to hear Will Smith's name thrown out there by Andrew Friedman, just because Will Smith has seemed like a quiet guy. He has been around for not a while, but he's been around for a few years now. And in those few years, the Dodgers have done a lot of things, and we'll see if what kind of, I know he's been, if anything, I know, leader by example. Strong, quiet type, but not sure if he's one of those guys that will lead in a different way, more vocally or anything like that. And one of the things Muncie touched on was Justin Turner did a lot of things behind the scenes that nobody really knows about. That's a big one. Of Dave Roberts wasn't concerned about anything changing or the culture or anything, but we've never seen Dave Roberts manage without having Justin Turner. Like, is Justin Turner in addition to the things that Dave Roberts does, or was Justin Turner helping keep things running smooth and like more of a partnership with Dave Roberts rather than an addition? That's what's going to be interesting to see. The Dodgers this year I don't see there being anyone on the bench that's going to believe like, oh, I should be playing every day type of thing. For the most part, a lot of these guys are going to be playing every day. Miguel Vargas is probably going to be playing mostly almost every day. Gavin Lux is going to be the starting shortstop. Outman, Trace Thompson might be guys that switch off a little bit more, don't play so much every day. But even then, they're going to be getting more playing time than maybe even they thought, or maybe even they think. Trace Thompson can be considered a veteran now, even though he's been a different type of veteran. But you got to imagine that he knows that he needs to perform in order to stay with the Dodgers. One, but also that the Dodgers put him in situations to perform well, which is situations of, what kind of pitchers on the mound when they put him out there and things of that nature. So there's a lot of question marks in terms of like the leadership, but I think most of it is, it's not a matter of, are the Dodgers not going to have leadership? The Dodgers are going to have leadership. They're going to be fine. They're not going to be an issue with it. I am interested to see about, these behind the scenes things. Just Justin Turner Was he talking to guys saying, hey, you know what? I know you're not playing so much. I know you probably want to play more, blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, I know you've been struggling, but hey, let's step it up a little bit. But, was he doing that in addition to what Dave Roberts brings as a manager, or was it more of a sidecar type of thing? So we'll see. There's a lot of questions there. There is a lot of questions also about Dodgers center field and what's going to happen there, and if Chris Taylor can get things back to what they were. So that's what we're going to get into next. But real quick, a reminder to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And after you listen to us, you can listen to Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia that's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. You can find that wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All right, so last thing is center field. And one of the questions Dave Roberts got asked at FanFest was about center field. Who will be center fielder? And Dave Roberts said, I think that your guys' guess is as good as mine. Now, obviously, our guesses probably aren't as good as the guy who's actually in charge, but basically what that says to me is that it's open competition, and spring training might really determine who's going to play center field for the Dodgers. It's not necessarily James Outman is the center fielder and someone has to surpass him, supplant him in order to be the center fielder. It's more a matter of, we don't have a center fielder, who's going to become that center fielder. And there's a long list of names, and we've gone over this a few times. There's James Outman and Trace Thompson, obviously, are up there. Chris Taylor's up there as well. Then you got Jason Hayward, Bradley Zimmer, Steven Duggar, all on minor league deals with invites to major league spring training, who could find their way there. But one of the biggest guys, and not necessarily a question mark, but more so of a, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it's Chris Taylor. And Chris Taylor was bad last year offensively. Career lows in OPS and OPS plus, or careers low since he came to the Dodgers. He struck out 35.2% of the time, which is even higher than him, who's already a guy that strikes out, more often than not. And he talked about his offseason, and, he got married and went on his honeymoon. But he also went to Driveline baseball facility in Seattle, and he said there he worked with the staff. He got some info, and that info has been passed along to the Dodgers hitting staff in order to help him out. Taylor did mention specifically he worked with weighted bats centered around generating bat speed and from tracking biometric data about the efficiency of his swing. He went on to add, quote, a lot of our guys have done that, everybody to different amounts. I think just going there for a day and hearing what they have to say, some valuable information. If you're not taking advantage of all the resources given to you, what are you really doing? I think you would be very stubborn to not give it a shot. And yeah, he's right. Is Driveline going to all of a sudden make him, the best hitter in baseball? Probably not. Is Driveline going to cut his strikeout rate down to like 20%? Probably not. But if he can live in that 25% range that he's been, if he can hit a little bit better than he did last year, if it doesn't, one thing with Taylor as a guy who's been known as a streaky hitter is he loses his swing, or he loses his timing, or he loses something in the batter's box, and it takes him a while to find it and figure it out. And, when he has it figured out, he can be a guy that can lead your team to wins and lead your team in the postseason and, lead your team in different ways. But when he doesn't, he's a guy that can really bring down a lineup because he's basically striking out, not even putting the ball in play almost 4 times out of 10. So with Taylor, getting this information is good. And obviously, as a Major League Baseball player, once you've already had success in the big leagues, you're never really going to crazily overhaul your swing. Now, Justin Turner did a complete swing overhaul, but I wouldn't say he had like great success in MLB. He was a player that was good enough to be in the majors, but even then, we saw the Mets non-tendered him. They didn't even offer him a contract his last year that they could have offered him a contract. So he revamped his swing in order to help out his career. JD Martinez, another guy who revamped his swing in order to, be a better baseball player. Now, Chris Taylor is not out here revamping his swing per se, but he's learning about different things. We saw Max Muncy last year make that adjustment with his feet and moving his feet a certain way in order to get back into ready position for him to hit, and it worked out well. Is Max Muncy going to do that this year? We're not sure. We'll see in spring training once he gets that going. But he never needed it before, but he did need it last year to make that in-season adjustment. And it's a lot harder to make an in-season adjustment than it is to make an off-season adjustment, because off-season you have, 3-4 months to implement something and get it going. And that's where Taylor's at. And, we've seen and read reports that Taylor's been working out with the Dodgers hitting staff basically since the start of the offseason. And I think, we've talked about Miguel Vargas as being one of the most important guys for the Dodgers. Gavin Lux being one of the most important guys for the Dodgers, because Dodgers need them to play well in order for them to be successful. But Chris Taylor is also one of those guys, because if he hits well enough, he could find himself as the everyday center fielder. The Dodgers don't have as many moving parts around, and the addition of Miguel Rojas helps them with the moving parts in the infield. If they want to, if Lux needs a day off, Miguel Rojas can play there. If Miguel Vargas needs a day off, Miguel Rojas can play there. If somebody, Max Muncy needs a day off, Miguel Rojas can play there. They don't have to be putting Chris Taylor in there. If Chris Taylor can play very well and get back to the Chris Taylor we know, I see him being as more of an everyday center fielder type, and with Outman, Trace Thompson, maybe handling more left field situation, unless they feel like Outman defensively is just that much better, or is, it's a matter of, Chris Taylor is a solid B plus center fielder and a solid B plus left fielder. James Outman is a solid B center fielder, but maybe a C left fielder. So would you rather have a B plus and a C, or would you rather have a B and a B plus? Which, makes sense. So that might be a reason that he's not an everyday center fielder, if he can if he can find his swing and be good again. But I expect him to pretty much be an everyday player, not necessarily moving around too much. They will have days to move around. Mookie will need days off here and there, and there will be movement out there, obviously. But I expect Chris Taylor to take on 140 or so starts, whether it's right field, center field, left field, whatever the case, whatever they need. And this is why spring training, for the most part, spring training, the last few years you're watching just to see where guys are at, and just basically to look at the younger guys who aren't going to make the team, but you want to see what they look like and to make sure nobody gets hurt. This year's spring training, you're actually looking at people competing for jobs, competing for spots, and you're looking at, can this guy do that? Can Miguel Vargas play second base? Can Gavin Lux handle shortstop? Will somebody emerge from all these outfielders to take a stranglehold on a position? That's kind of it. The pitching is a little bit more settled. The offense is where it's going to come in, and it is going to be a different spring training also, just because of the World Baseball Classic. Now, none of these guys that are really fighting for roles are going to be out there playing in the World Baseball Classic, but that does mean that they'll have probably a little bit more room, a little more time for at-bats and things of that nature once these guys leave. Mookie Betts, Will Smith, Kershaw, those guys going to Team USA. You got Julio and Barnes going with Mexico. You got maybe Miguel Rojas, and you got Brusdar Graterol going with Venezuela. You got guys going all over. Trace is going to play for Great Britain, but I would imagine that's going to be a little 3 or 4 game stint, pool play, and then he'll get back to the Dodgers. And he's already going to be in Phoenix because that's where Great Britain's playing. So, yeah, there's a lot to go off of, but I expect Chris Taylor to get back to, not striking out 35% of the time, to be an everyday player. So that's what we're at. That's where we're at for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB Prospects for your second listen with host Lindsey Crosby, wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. Jeff is likely going to get Keith Law and talk about his prospect rankings. He's always has the Dodgers very high. He had the Dodgers as the number 1 overall farm system. Had a lot of guys from their farm system in his top 100. So Jeff should be talking to him on tomorrow's episode. That's all for today's episode. Reminder, if you want to find us, you can find us on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts by searching for Locked On Dodgers, which is also how you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. It's our Smart Device Play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.